Larry Ellison. Appearance: a rugged, adventurous man with an enormous beard wearing chainmail.
Skills: Ancient History 1 bad. Fighting 6 excellent. Subtlety 2 decent. Charisma 3 decent. Romances: interested in women, none. Tal 59 good. Church 45 bad. Undiscovered relationships 4. Inventory: gold 100 gold. Sword: charisma ring. Alchemy set: blue lux gladius. Crystal ball. Golem. Chain armor. Golem manual. Chapter 1. You and Tal stumbled on an ancient magic academy. You discovered a book of evomancy, and an inquisitor chased you. You found an ancient dueling ground. You captured the inquisitor, but he escaped. You explored the academy library. A divination revealed a potential ally in the form of a golem, so you took a manual on the operation of golems from the library. You gained control of the golem. You made your way through an ancient harpy ball arena. You went around the back way into the auditorium. You went around the back way into the laboratory. The flame from the dragon's breath threatened to consume the whole sunken academy. You escaped the Magic Academy and headed for your hometown of Akreton. Choice of Magics by Kevin Gold. Show stats, restart achievements menu. Chapter 2 Home. The skies over the kingdom have not been clear since the time of the ancients. The eternal storm they created 2,000 years ago with their automation magic continues to make the world a grey, rainy place. At the moment, a light drizzle dampens your wings, but the storm isn't as bad as it could be. Thunder crashes off to your right, somewhere along the coast of the Negative Sea. The Negative Sea is the huge bank of black and purple fog stretching along the eastern border of the kingdom from north to south. Accidentally created at the end of the Great War 2,000 years ago, it blocks all passage to the lands to the east, the lands of the neighbors once known as the Magisterian Empire. Whether the neighbors even still exist is a matter of speculation, but the mile-high Negative Sea is certainly real. Composed of dense negative energy residue, it could dissolve anything that ventured inside. The plains to the west are scraggly and barren. It's early spring, and a new growth is just starting to peek through the tan soil, but you can already see barren trails where death clouds have broken away from the Negative Sea and scoured the way across the countryside. As the misty negative residue is relatively heavy, it travels low to the ground, which is just as well as you're not sure. Choice of Magics by Kevin Gold. Show stats, restart achievements menu. Chapter 2 Home. The skies over the kingdom have not been clear since the time of the ancients. The eternal storm they created 2,000 years ago with their automation magic continues to make the world a grey, rainy place. At the moment, a light drizzle dampens your wings, but the storm isn't as bad as it could be. Thunder crashes off to your right, somewhere along the coast of the Negative Sea. The Negative Sea is the huge bank of black and purple fog stretching along the eastern border of the kingdom from north to south. Accidentally created at the end of the Great War 2,000 years ago, it blocks all passage to the lands to the east, the lands of the neighbors once known as the Magisterian Empire. Whether the neighbors even still exist is a matter of speculation, but the mile-high Negative Sea is certainly real. Composed of dense negative energy residue, it could dissolve anything that ventured inside. The plains to the west are scraggly and barren. It's early spring, and a new growth is just starting to peek through the tan soil, but you can already see barren trails where death clouds have broken away from the negative sea and scoured the way across the countryside. As the misty negative residue is relatively heavy, it travels low to the ground, which is just as well, as you're not sure what would happen if the eternal storm ever mixed with a death cloud. You land a mile outside Accreton in a forest called the Mild Woods, so that you don't draw too much attention on your return. You painfully pull your wings back into your body. While you rest from your flight, your golem catches up to you and stands at attention, ready for orders. Back to reality, I guess, Tal says, echoing your thoughts. She looks up at the thunderheads above. This doesn't look too bad, actually. We should be fine to get home. She nods to your golem. Not sure what you plan to do with that guy when we get there. You think the golem gives an almost imperceptible shrug. Advu volant Dominex. By the time you and Tal get back to town, it's sunset. The market in the town square is being disassembled for the day, with canopies rolled up and tent poles stacked. The scrawny sheep and heifers of the meat market are being herded down the street back to the pastures, complaining with bleats and moos. Some construction has halted for the day, the tall wood and rope pulley systems covered with tarps in case it rains tonight. You haggle with a vendor for a cheap tarp, go back to your golem waiting on the outskirts of the city, and give it to the golem as a makeshift poncho. By the time you return, the market has mostly cleared out, leaving only Sadan sitting cross-legged on a rug, dispensing advice to her last parishioner. The white-robed Sat has offered healing and holy visions to Accreton for years, and her aura of holiness is palpable. This is where we part ways, Tal says. Thanks for the adventure. She lifts her pack, laden with whatever artifacts she could get her hands on. You can see old tomes and silver jewelry peeking through its opening. Mom was going to lose the house, but not anymore. I'm headed straight to the bank tomorrow, not even going to let her touch this stuff. Not keeping anything for yourself, you say. Tal shrugs. I don't know, maybe if there's something left. Don't worry about it. Wait a moment, calls Sadan. You haggle with a vendor for a cheap tarp. By the time you and Tal get back to town, it's sunset. The market in the town square is being disassembled for the day, with canopies rolled up and tent poles stacked. The scrawny sheep and heifers of the meat market are being herded down the street back to the pastures, complaining with bleats and moos. Some construction has halted for the day, the tall wood and rope pulley systems covered with tarps in case it rains tonight. You haggle with a vendor for a cheap tarp, go back to your golem waiting on the outskirts of the city, and give it to the golem as a makeshift poncho. By the time you return, the market has mostly cleared out, leaving only Sadan sitting cross-legged on a rug, dispensing advice to her last parishioner. The white-robed Sat has offered healing and holy visions to Accreton for years, and her aura of holiness is palpable. This is where we part ways, Tal says. Thanks for the adventure. She lifts her pack, laden with whatever artifacts she could get her hands on. You can see old tomes and silver jewelry peeking through its opening. Mom was going to lose the house, but not anymore. I'm headed straight to the bank tomorrow, not even going to let her touch this stuff. Not keeping anything for yourself, you say. Tal shrugs. I don't know, maybe if there's something left. Don't worry about it. Wait a moment, calls Saint Anne. Tal, your leg didn't heal right, Saint Anne says, pointing. Whoever did that put you in danger of an infection. Let me fix it. Neither you nor Tal has been in any trouble with the church before, so you're uncertain how to proceed. You think the saints act somewhat independently from the church. Could she have received a vision of your encounter with the Inquisitor? But Saint Anne has an aura of holiness that makes it difficult to mistrust her. Remembering your golem, you turn, but you don't see it for a moment. You pick its up out of a nearby construction site. You think it's huddling under it and pretending to be a pile of bricks. So that seems fine. Rather impressive, really. I'm sorry, Marie, Saint Anne says to the plain-looking brunette who is her last client. It's no trouble, her parishioner insists. I think I was done. Then go with Abraxas. The plain-looking woman leaves. She looks familiar, but you can't place her. Encourage Tal to get healing from Saint Anne. Forget healing. Ask Saint Anne how much she knows about our day. Ask Saint Anne for a vision of my future, ignoring the suggestion of healing. You may as well, you tell Tal. Increased optimism. Yeah, better that than get some kind of weird growth where you cursed me, Tal says. You can tell she intended it to be a joke, but it didn't come out that way. Tal goes to Saint Anne, kneels, and pushes her armor out of the way of where her wound was. Saint Anne's hand glows, and you see tiny wriggling life in the beams of light that are drawn into it. It reminds you of Vivomancy, but this magic is more impressive in a way that you find hard to describe. Anne presses her hand to Tal's leg and murmurs a short prayer under her breath, and the wound seals. Now, let me see if I have some advice for you as well, Saint Anne says. She puts her thumb and forefinger to her temples and mutters another nearly inaudible prayer. Tal, the time is coming when it will be better to reveal everything. People fear what is unfamiliar more than the familiar. With friends in high places, anything is possible. Do you understand? You're somewhat taken aback. Surely Anne is suggesting Tal reveal she is a shapeshifter. Okay, thanks, Tal says, frowning. She clearly doesn't quite believe being open is a good idea. Saint Anne winces and puts a hand on her abdomen. I think that must be my last miracle. Possibly my last in a Cretan, since I'm leaving tomorrow. Where are you going? You ask, again worried this is connected to the Inquisitor. The capital, Anne says. I need some rest. She smiles sadly. I haven't ever had a holiday since coming here, did you know? Not once. Well, good luck, you say, still uncertain as to what is happening with Saint Anne. I'm afraid I'm out of luck, Saint Anne says. But if I never see you again, I want you to remember this: I don't regret being a saint. Not for one moment. Life always comes to an end. All we can do is live it beautifully. You aren't sure what to say to this, and during your hesitation, Saint Anne departs. You then say good night to Tal as well. When you're out of sight, you cast a divination to ask whether there's something you could do for Saint Anne. But the divination comes up blank. If she is dying, there is no saving her. Increase church relationship. Come on, golem, you say to the tarp-covered lump in the construction site, and it rises to its feet and lumbers along after you, now a tarp-covered lump with legs. You proceed to the home of banker Sarah, whose basement you rent, and struggle with the storm doors as you try to conceal all the random artifacts you picked up from the academy. You have a feeling there was a clause prohibiting the storage of forbidden artifacts somewhere in that long contract you signed to rent the place. Working the doors open, you and the golem proceed into your basement abode. What does it look like overall? It's filled with mementos reminding me of friends and family. The floor is dominated by a giant map of all the ruins I know about. I use a bunch of quirky ancient junk as furniture. The central room of your apartment looks more like an army's command headquarters than a place that is lived in. A giant map that you commissioned from a local artist is painted on the floor. You have added to the map some likely locations of sunken ruins of the ancients, with access through the locations that didn't work out. A grid that uses a coordinate system you designed yourself is superimposed on the map, and you keep a compass and straightedge nearby to keep your measurements precise. One wall is taken up with a bookshelf sorted by subject and then alphabetically by author. An armoire near the door contains your adventuring clothing, sorted by appropriate climate, and next to that, cabinets containing your adventuring gear are sorted by terrain, with the subterranean category moved to a basket on top for easy access. Overall, your apartment speaks to your determined, organized mind. Increased calculation. Increased solemnity. One desk in the corner, set a carefully calculated distance away from the map, is reserved for your laboratory, humble as it is, or was before your expedition to the sunken academy. The random assortment of automatic trinkets whose power you were trying to unlock now seems like nothing compared to the haul you dump onto the desk, a whole alchemy set, composed of vials, beakers, and burners that you lay out across the desk, the fascinating Lux Gladius weapon, the crystal ball from the harpy's nest, which you place on an extra trivet from the alchemy set, an assortment of spare automation parts you picked up while exploring the academy, and, of course, the hefty tomes of magic you found, which will form the basis of your further magical study. Not to mention the golem. You had quite a haul this time around. The Vos Imperiates, Dominax, the golem, prompts behind you, still wearing the tarp as a disguise. It occurs to you that the golem might want a name, besides just golem. What will you name your golem? Petra, meaning stone. Maximus naught, because I like counting from 0. Golem is fine. I'll come up with a unique name. Tommy, is that right? Yes. Your name is now Tommy, you tell the golem. Certainly, Dominax, says Tommy. Vos Imperiates. I think some of my magical experiments will probably benefit from having another person around, you say. And since Stal is smart enough to not volunteer for that, and nobody else in town should see my experiments, you were the perfect candidate for the role. Olia Kala, the golem says uncertainly. But it nods. All that can begin tomorrow, though, you say. Tonight, I'm going to get some well-deserved rest, and you can too. Tommy seems to shrug. Olia Kala. It stands motionless. Well, maybe it doesn't need any rest, but at least you don't have to worry about it this way. Happier than you have been in a long time, you go to your bedroom, a tiny room just big enough for your neatly made bed, and drift off to sleep. When you wake up the next day, you're most eager to continue studying the books of magic you retrieved from the academy. Tommy stands ready to help, or at least, it's not doing anything else. Which kind of magic will you study the most? Recall that negation is useful for fights but leaves behind deadly clouds. Divination reveals information to you but may also reveal information about yourself to someone else in the process. Automation creates magical objects but worsens the ever-present storms. Glamour makes you persuasive in the short term but wears away at your health, and Vivomancy is the magic of life and often has unexpected long-term consequences. You've read that the primary way the ancient Vivomancers gained skill in the craft was by creating new life forms. You've never done anything like that, but it should be educational. What is the overall shape of the life form you will create? It will walk on 4 legs. It will have 2 legs and wings. It will slither like a snake or worm. And what will its head look like? It will have the head of a dragon. It will have the head of a lion. It will have the head of a blue jay. And what will its hide be covered with? And what will the overall color of this creature be? Blue. And what will the color of its mane be? Silver. Finally, what will you call this new kind of creature? What? Sphinx. A sphinx. Plural sphinx. Is that right? Sphinx, it is. You have Tommy go into the mild woods to collect the living specimens you'll need for the spell, a small lion cub for the legs, head, and fur, and some additional blue and silver flower petals for coloration. On Tommy's return to your workshop, you place the caged bobcat in the middle of your desk and strew the flower petals around it in an intricate pattern dictated by your tome of Vivomancy. You feed the creature some special ground meal recommended by the tome for making it docile. Surprisingly, it gobbles the stuff right up. You place a hand on its neck. Creatura prithia metamorpha pedibus uscad crania. You say, willing the creature to transform into your desired shape. The flower petals glow blue and silver, and their sweet smell fills the air as glowing particles rise from them. Meanwhile, your captive writhes and shudders as similar particles are pulled from it, mingling with the flower particles at the center of the table as its old shell collapses dead. Finally, there is a flash, and your new Sphinx remains at the center of the workshop table, standing amid the blackened petals. Gained Vivomancy. It cozies up to you, and you pet its leonine head. What will you do with this new creature, now that you've created it? I can't part with it. Name it and keep it as a pet. It could fetch a fair price at market. Introduce it into the wild with a partner and see what happens. After all this effort, you can't bear to part with little guy. What do you name your new pet? Leo. You think you will enjoy coming home to Leo the Sphinx? You're so involved in your magical pursuits that you don't really think to call on your parents. So they decide to come to you. You recognize the drumroll-like knock of your father on the storm doors of your apartment. You quickly drape a sheet over Tommy and tell him not to say a word. You take his silence as acknowledgement. You put Leo away in a cage and place the cage under your bed. Your father greets you with a hug when you open the door. Ori. He's a construction worker, but he's always been more physically demonstrative than you would expect from someone in his profession. The hug gets some sawdust on you. You didn't even say hello. We weren't sure whether some great drake was munching on you like a big turkey leg. Rude. Your mother sniffs in not quite agreement. She opens her arms expectantly. The convention, she would tell you, is that the child is supposed to hug the parent. You do. You always do, even when she's at her most judgmental. You proceed to get sawdust on her frilly, shabby dress, which she wipes off with a tsk. Your father looks around at your place. You've got some new stuff in here. So many books. My child is going to be the smartest in the kingdom at this rate. He's always been a clever child, your mother says in quiet satisfaction. You're a bit old to be called a child, old enough to have children of your own, really, but you don't take the conversation down that well-worn path. The real question is, are you going to tell your parents that you can cast spells now? Your parents are usually a bit traditional, and you've maintained peace with them so far only by not revealing the extent of your infatuation with magic, which is entirely forbidden. Pretend my finds were purely of historical interest. Admit to learning magic, but act like it isn't a big deal. Solemnly explain that I have great power now, and things will necessarily change. Oh, by the way, I can cast spells now, you say casually. Found some old books. You know me, always into reading. Oh. I want to see one. Your father says. Show me, show me, show me. Your mother lifts an arched eyebrow, but she does that quite a bit, and you think it means she isn't sure how to react yet. You think for a moment about what spells might be least shocking. Honestly, each school of magic is potentially alarming when you think about it. Divination is just as worrying in its own way as the black fireballs of negation. You settle on Vivomancy for a demonstration. You place a hand on the wooden frame of the door. Ligna humilibus, dea humilibus apagixis. A small knob grows from the doorframe. You take a large iron key from your pocket, your key to the storm doors of your apartment, and hang its ring from the knob. Key rack, you say, and bow. Your father claps. That's my boy, he says proudly. Your mother shoots him a disapproving look. What? Your father says. It's a key rack. What inquisitor is going to chase our Ori down because of a key rack? Your mother sniffs. They're normally thinner, but that's a good first try, your mother says. There's a strain in her voice that suggests she's still none too happy about your field of study, but she's unsure what she can do besides go along with it. The key rack almost imperceptibly begins to twitch, as if the knob were its nose and the thing were about to sneeze, and you quickly take your key back. Your parents didn't seem to notice. See? No big deal, you say nervously. Your mother puts her hand on your shoulder. The things you love are always a big deal to us, she says firmly. And I've never seen you smile like that in the past 15 years. Just be careful, all right? I will, you say. Perhaps the stern, disapproving parents you thought you had were more in your head than anything. Increased empathy. Increased optimism. Increased humor. After your parents leave, you decide it's high time you visited the market to sell the random artifacts you don't intend to keep. Colorful flags of different trading companies flutter in a strong wind above the market square, which is buzzing with activity this morning. Though Cretan is fundamentally a small town, it happens to be the only town for many miles on the north-south road that is closest to the -C on the eastern border. A fair number of traders bearing mundane goods such as grains, dyes, and cloth therefore stop in Cretan, as do monster hunters and treasure hunters offering hard-to-appraise finds from nearby ruins. The merchants mostly trade from impermanent tents open at one side, but some wander through the crowd and act as their own auctioneers, who will give me 50 for a silver ring from the time of the ancients. 50 thank you 55 I have 55. The air is sweet with the smells of cinnamon and curry spices from the south, and stinky cheese from the north. A copper, haystack-like lump in the center of the market was once a tree sculpture in ancient times, but it was melted centuries ago by a roaming dragon's breath. It was always said to be good luck, and one of Mayor Koz's projects is to fundraise to restore the tree. You think selling magical items won't cause trouble for you this far from the capital. Many traders out here near the -C don't ask too many questions. At any rate, possessing magical artifacts is considered a far lesser sin than the casting of spells. What will you buy or sell at the market? You have 100 gold. I want to sell something. Buy some fine clothing suitable for a noble. 150 gold. Buy an all-black outfit suitable for sneaking around. 175 gold. Buy a good set of chain armor. 350 gold. Buy a rare old history book called Via Verita Abraxas, or True Life of Abraxas, for 300 gold. Buy an old tonic that the seller claims helps with a variety of maladies. 300 gold. Buy ingredients for a potion to improve my negation magic for 350 gold. Requires alchemy set. Buy ingredients for a potion to improve my glamour for 300 gold. Requires alchemy set. Buy a set of fine tools and spare parts for automation. 400 gold. Donate 1 to 500 gold to restore the copper tree sculpture at the center of the marketplace. Buy one of those big turkey legs I always see people around here eating. 5 gold. Visit Sir Marie, the fortune teller, for 25 gold. Browse some hats. I think my business at the market is done. You see a fair number of people roaming the market with big old turkey legs and steins full of beer. You're not sure about drinking this early in the day, but those turkey legs look fun. You purchase one. Why not? Lost 5 gold. Increased humor. What else will you buy or sell at the market? You have 95 gold. A young woman with long blonde hair is staffing a tent next to a wooden sign that says, "A Cretan Market Restoration Fund." Hello, would you like to help restore our town's vital market square? The blonde woman rattles off. Mayor Cos will write a thank you to every person who contributes. All we need is. The blonde woman looks at the ledger in her hands and does some arithmetic. Huh. Exactly 500 gold to go. We might actually do it this year. She looks up at you. We're so close. You gonna give something? Anything. Please. How much will you contribute? 1 gold. You drop a gold piece in the bucket on the tent's table. The blonde woman looks you up and down, estimating how much more you could have given, and frowns. Thank you, every little bit counts, she says dismissively, and she turns her attention to the next potential patron. Lost 1 gold. Increased empathy. What else will you buy or sell at the market? You have 94 gold. Visit Sir Marie, the fortune teller, for 25 gold. You pass through a curtain of wooden beads to enter a fortune-telling tent thick with the smell of incense. The fortune teller is a woman wearing a bronze headdress inset with many tiny zirconium jewels, thick gilt chains in layers around her neck, and a red dress that opens down the middle in a revealing way. It's a costume deliberately meant to evoke the period of Hierophant Alexander, who ruled the church 1,000 years ago and believed all pious people could see the future with sufficient faith in Abraxas. A wooden sign above the fortune teller reads, "All fortunes are the result of prayers to Abraxas and are for entertainment purposes only." The fortune teller looks up from a spread of mystical cards, calotte cards, each of which has a name supposedly signifying stages of life's journey: the wild, the trump, the start over. Her deck is not from the time of the ancients but is embellished with the fantastical drawings that became popular over the years. The start over shows a huge negation blast of the kind that would level whole cities during the Great War. "I am Sir Marie," the fortune teller says melodramatically, waving her fingers unnecessarily and emphasizing her slightly exotic name. "Would you like to know the secrets of the future?" I fear what I will hear, but I must know. The fortune teller nods at your solemn response. Increased solemnity. Increased caution. Lost 25 gold. Sir Marie deals out 4 calotte cards, one across the other, and 2 more in a line from there. She points to the card underneath another card. It is the wild, depicted with a dancing jester. This card represents the questioner. The wild indicates that you have many possibilities within you, but possibly also that you can be irresponsible. In some decks it is called the fool. Sounds about right, you agree. She points to the card on top of that card, the cascade, symbolized on the card with an avalanche of boulders. This card represents immediate influences on you. The cascade suggests that some unstoppable chain of events will soon come to pass, something you cannot possibly avoid. Rocky times ahead for you. How can a chain of events be unstoppable? You protest. Every fate is avoidable somehow. Shush. Sir Marie points to the card immediately next to those 2 cards. It shows 10 little figures, each offering up a different gift. This card is called the 10 points, the fortune teller says. It is in the position of near future. After the rocky times, you will receive gifts and offers of kindness. 10 of them. It's not that specific, the fortune teller says dryly. And finally, the split. The painting on this card is of a fork in the road. After the gifts, you'll make a big decision that will have a huge impact on subsequent events. Make it carefully. The fortune teller gathers the cards up. The fortune seems to be over. Couldn't that fortune have applied to anybody, anytime? You complain that the reading was vague enough to apply to anyone. The fortune teller shrugs. Some say we are all going through the same journey and the cards merely reveal different aspects of it. So this is basically your fortune, too, you say. And everybody out there's fortune. Giant avalanche thing, hitting everybody. Gifts and rewards for everybody. Giant fork in the road for everybody. In a way, the fortune teller gives you her best enigmatic smile. You leave bemoaning the loss of 25 gold, which will now make you just short of all kinds of purchases. Increased calculation. What else will you buy or sell at the market? You have 69 gold. Browse some hats. The hat seller gives you a suspicious look as you begin to examine her hats. You messed them up, you bought them, she says with a wag of her pudgy finger. These are custom-made hats as good as anything in the capital. Purchase a jaunty feathered hat for 400 gold. Purchase a big floppy black hat for 400 gold. Buy a conical hat decorated with stars and moons for 400 gold. The hat seller has correctly identified me as someone who won't buy anything. I knew it. The milliner begins to rant, but you're out of earshot soon enough. What else will you buy or sell at the market? You have 69 gold. I want to sell something. What will you sell? On second thought, I don't want to sell anything right now. Sell my Lux Gladius for 300 gold. Sell my crystal ball to the fortune teller for 200 gold. Sell the actor's golden ring for 300 gold. Sell my alchemy set for 400 gold. I think my business at the market is done. You decide you're done shopping for now. Just as you're about to head home, you hear fruit seller Fran cry, "Thief." You spin around to see a man in drab brown clothing brazenly running off with a basket of red apples, leaving a large gap in the offerings of Fran's fruit cart. He easily shoves aside all the townsfolk who try to get in his way. Fran uselessly shakes her walking stick at him, crying, "Thief! Thief!" until she starts to lose her balance and leans on it again. "Thief!" she cries hoarsely. You think you can tell which horse at the corner of the market he's running to. He'll pass within 20 feet of you. A negation blast is probably out of the question, but you have other options. If you're subtle, you can cast something without attracting attention. I use Vivomancy to make a nearby tree trip him. I cast to glamour, then cry out, "Halt! I don't want to attract attention." The thief can escape. You see a tree on a grassy island that the thief will pass near, with one root protruding in a provocative way above ground. If it were just a foot to the right. Arbor Munici, Ludo Footsie, you murmur, drawing on the energy within the tree itself and mentally inviting the root to come out and play. You try to be subtle about the beckoning motion you make with your finger. The root obliges you, giving a short kick just as the thief runs past. The thief lets out a little yelp as he goes sprawling to the ground, sending apples tumbling everywhere. Townsfolk rush to pick up the apples. The count of 5 rule is an old tradition for judging the edibility of fallen food. Then they return the fruit to Fran, because honesty is also a tradition in your town. 2 of the town guard show up, heavies wearing leather armor, and they strong-arm the thief away. You can hear murmurs behind you that include the words magic and witch. When you turn around, you catch a whole crowd of people turning and pretending they're interested in something else all at once. There's no use denying it, they saw everything, and they're going to tell stories. You try to at least lose yourself in a different crowd, to keep them from looking sidewise at you. But the whole matter of the thief is quickly forgotten when a man down the street shouts, "Death Cloud." Looking down Main Street to the east, you can see a dark purple and black cloud on the horizon. The cloud looks big, maybe as big as the town. Judging from the strong wind today, it may be here in less than an hour. This is not a Cretan's first brush with a cloud of negative energy. Immediately, the merchants break down the tents, and many market patrons hurry into the houses and basements. Shutters snap shut all down the street. The animal sellers hastily bargain with landowners, then push the sheep through storm doors into basements. A baby cries madly despite her mother's tense reassurances. Some people uproot flowers as they pass them. They'll be no good to anybody else soon enough. Since everyone will be sheltering inside soon, you could help out the town with some magic. But you think it will take some very powerful magic indeed to stop this cloud. Use automation to repair the town's ancient, rusty set of giant fans. Part the cloud with negation magic. Use divination to find stragglers whom this cloud might kill. Take shelter myself and continue my magical studies. Use automation to repair the town's ancient, rusty set of giant fans. You recall playing on the town's ancient fans as a child. 5 rusty rotary fans, each about 30 feet tall, sit at 45-degree angles on the eastern perimeter of the town. The metal frames dividing them made for excellent slides. You honestly have no idea whether they were originally purely mechanical or powered by automation. The sheltered area beneath the fans, where gears may once have been, appears to have been stripped bare long ago. Perhaps the fan blades were left behind because they were so rusty. You pull a hammer and chisel and some vials of silver powder from your belt pouch, and begin inscribing runes on the fan blades to power the rotation. You tensely try not to waste any silver, balancing the speed of your work with accuracy. Gained automation. Your hands shake, but you can't help it. A shadow is cast over your work as the black cloud approaches. The cloud itself sounds like a very strong wind, with a hint of a swarm-like buzz. Flabellum ingens, reviviscat item. Lightning strikes 5 times in a row, once on each fan, crackling down the length of each blade. The silver runes glow, and the rusty fan blades slowly begin to spin. Slowly is the operative word. You doubt they'll reach the speed they need to keep the dark cloud at bay. You retreat a little into town to watch the clouds approach. When you see it engulf the fans, you know it's time to run and take shelter. You make it all the way back to your basement apartment, fumbling with the key in your haste to get inside. Once inside, you slam the storm doors shut and close the curtain of dried leaves, giving the negative energy something to eat in case some should seep through the doors. Leo. You call, and you think you hear some rustling from under your bed. Indeed, your Sphinx is hiding under there, shivering with dread at the approaching catastrophe it senses. The Vos Imperiates, Dominax, Tommy says, startling you from near the door where you entered. You shake your head. Nothing you can do, you tell it. You open a tiny hole in the storm doors and poke out a periscope of your own design, built into the doors. You watch as the black and purple cloud engulfs the whole town, building by building. At the cloud's touch, flowers wither, trees drop their leaves, and wooden shutters blacken as though charred. Finally, the cloud comes for your building, blocking your view of anything but its own darkness. You quickly retract the periscope and shutter the hole. All you can do now is wait and listen to the strong wind buffeting the exterior walls, and the sizzle of the wooden paint in reply. You try studying one of your magical tomes, but your eyes just dance across the page, as you can only think of what you might have done differently. The next day is spent rebuilding and replanting, an effort that the whole town takes part in. The whole town except you. Anyway, you get distracted wondering about the origins of the negative C and spend the whole day with your nose in books. Gain negation. Gain ancient history. Townsfolk fix wooden gates that have been eaten through, dig up withered grass and plant new seed, and slaughter livestock that won't have enough to eat in the coming months. And then, as is traditional, there is a party the next day to celebrate everything the town still has. The market square is festooned with colored paper streamers and lit with red, orange, and yellow glowbugs swarming around, illuminating the gathered townsfolk. A great hog carcass turns on a spit in the center of the square. You wonder whether it belonged to the swineherd who reportedly died in the cloud. The smell of cooking meat hangs thick in the air. The fiddler, a young person with spiky hair and ample piercings, plays a merry tune to entertain the people in the long line for food. An area to the side is cleared for dancing, and many Cretonians are already reeling through tunnels of hands and do-see-doing around the partners. The fiddler finishes the song, and everyone claps. Before they can start another, one woman sings loudly, "Who's got a lot of luck?" And the crowd around her sings back, "We do." The fiddler gamely accompanies the Cretan's favorite song. "Who's got a lot of luck?" "We do. We got our loves, our friends, and you. The world is broken, but we've awoken to all our treasures true. We thought the world would end. Look now. We got a lovely world, and how? Smiling faces and warm embraces will happen anyhow. Who's got a lot of luck? We do. Loved ones and good companions true. If once again the world should end, we'd start this song anew." What do you think of the crowd's song? I like the theme of trying to stay cheerful amid sadness. You smile. Even in the midst of sadness, the town has always rallied to lift each other's spirits. And why not be optimistic? Your community can't be broken by some random bad weather events, however destructive. Increased optimism. The fiddle player goes back to improvising, and you spot Tal at the head of the meat line, dressed in a dusty crimson tunic and wearing her purple stuffed monkey noodles with his floppy arms tied around her waist. She sees you, smiles, and waves. You can't hear what she says to the man handing out the meat, but in response, he gives her another extra big slice of pork. Tal comes over and offers to sit with you. Are you going to eat the pork? Yes, all meat is great. Tal offers you some of her pork, and you share. So, what have you been up to since we got back? You ask Tal. Got a hunt that's been giving me trouble, Tal says. Dodecapede descending from the mountains to eat crops. I've tried twice now to follow it to its lair, but having 12 legs apparently makes you a crazy fast climber. Followed the tracks into some mines, then I lost the trail. She glances at you, then nudges you repeatedly. Hey, wanna come? Wanna come? Offer to help in exchange for half Tal's fee, 200 gold. I'm happy to help you out, you offer. For half your hunter's fee, of course. Of course. Tal says. We're partners. She counts out 20 gold tenors from her belt pouch. Mayor Cos paid an advance up front, and Mom already took 100 from me, so don't let me down. Gain 200 gold. No problem, you say. Increased Tal relationship. What have you been up to anyway? Tal asks. Actually, wait a minute, I think I know. You shrug. Yeah, exploring eldritch mysteries, peering into the heart of truth itself, and accumulating enough power to rule the world. You know, like Yadu. You say it in a low voice, so only Tal can hear, and she giggles and gives you a scandalized look. You shouldn't joke, she says. There are any number of people in this town who would kill you for what you are. She nods to the dancing, laughing people. You suppose she's technically right, but it's a little hard to believe at the moment. You notice that Tal has finished her plate. The fiddler is playing a peppy tune. Across the square, you see Mayor Cos greeting various townsfolk as he makes his way to the dance floor. The young mayor looks genuinely aggrieved as he goes from one townsperson to another, consoling people for the loss of their gardens and animals. You'd like to dance with Tal, but you could conceivably advance your fledgling wizarding career more by talking to Mayor Cos. Or, you suppose, you could just animate Tal's favorite stuffed monkey noodles for fun. Tal would probably like that. Ask Tal to dance. Do you want to dance? You say, gesturing toward the couples who are dancing together instead of toward the big line dance. Of course. Tal says. The two of you joined the other romantic couples dancing near the fiddler. Who will lead? I'll lead. You hold your hands up in a pose that suggests you'll lead, and Tal shrugs and accepts the follow position. Your skill at fighting by Tal's side translates into excellent communication between the two of you on the dance floor, and you wow everyone watching. Increased adoration. Increased Tal relationship. The time passes quickly as you dance with Tal, and you think her subtle smile and sideways glances indicate she's interested in you. How far do you want to try to go with Tal? I'd settle for a kiss goodnight. At the end of the lively song, you dip Tal, and while everyone is applauding, you kiss her. No dainty pecks for Tal, she's a ferocious kisser. You right yourselves, and Tal's uncovered eye tries to take you in, wondering where you're going with this. You're okay? You ask. Yeah. You're okay? Yeah. You hesitate. We don't want to move too fast. No, slow and steady. Slow and steady is great. So, see you tomorrow. Sounds great, Tal says. She shrugs. You know, one more kiss isn't too fast. No, we could have one. You kiss, and then kiss a third time, and then go home to bed, physically separate, but now inarguably together. You awaken the next morning a bit groggy, having stayed up rather later than you intended. Leo is licking your face, and you barely get up to feed the Sphinx, only to find that it has already apparently killed a mouse and left it on your bed. Bon man, Dominax, your golem intones from the corner. Good morning, you say. You head to Tal's place to embark on the hunt you agreed to. You and Tal travel north to the Crown Mountains, where snow from the past winter is still gradually melting into the river Nemos. It is 3 days' ride to the feet of the mountains, where your quarry was last seen munching farmers' crops. You travel without animals, since they couldn't follow you into the mountains. You hunt a dodecapede, a shaggy, white-haired, 12-legged mammal bred by the ancients as a beast of burden for the mines. Tal says it looks rather like a giant, elongated Pekingese dog. The dodecapede's tracks are no great feat to spot. Each depression is nearly 2 feet wide, leading very evenly up the hill through new-fallen snow. Tal assures you that it's not as big as it appears. The beast knows to step in its own tracks and widens them that way. You're reasonably certain you could take down this beast with your Lux Gladius and no other magic whatsoever, but you could take this opportunity to try something new instead. What's the plan? Defeat the beast in melee with our blades of light. You decide this is a good opportunity to practice your sword play and teamwork with Tal. Once you follow the tracks to the entrance of the abandoned mine that is the beast's lair, you hide with Tal behind a large bank of snow and wait for the beast to emerge. As you wait, Tal describes to you the many scenarios you could encounter for the fight, and it is interesting to hear her lay out all the different tactical situations. Gain fighting. Hours later, you hear the giant dog-like creature's many footfalls echo through the mine, and it slowly emerges from the entrance. When it's halfway out, you draw your Lux Gladius and charge. You and Tal show the same degree of coordination and flash that you displayed on the dance floor. Your Lux Gladius sears black gashes in the creature's side and underbelly. Tal rolls under the beast and begins attacking it from the other side, and it seems to be unable to scratch at both of you at the same time. You and Tal become positively covered in blood, but the plan works, and the beast finally sags to the ground, dead. Tal removed the head as a trophy to bring back to her clients. You also search the old mine and find enough gold nuggets lying around for a hefty bonus for you and Tal. Gain 200 gold. You meet up with Tal's clients, all grizzled farmers, at a tavern back in town. Tal produces the bloody head of the dodecapede from a large sack, which silences the tavern as everybody turns to stare. But the farmers cheer and clap, and Tal receives the reward and is pleased. Increased Tal relationship. Since you and Tal are both tired from your travels and the hunt, you part ways with few words and go to bed a little early. On leaving your apartment to get milk from the market the next day, you find that someone has painted a red cone with an eye in it on the storm doors leading to your apartment. It is an old symbol for marking the house of a wizard. You think the cone is supposed to be a stereotypical wizard hat. You have Tommy rub the graffiti down with alcohol while you proceed with your errands. Increased caution, increased calculation, increased solemnity. Between your excitement at your discoveries from the sunken academy, the unexpected arrival of the negative energy cloud, as well as Tal's invitation to the hunt, you have been delaying your decision about your relationship with the town. When you were younger, you imagined becoming an official town wizard. You still have some hope that if the town saw everything you could do for them, people might set aside their superstitions about magic. But perhaps that is naive. What will your relationship to the town be? I'd prefer to be a quiet benefactor of the town, subtly helpful. You aren't certain people are ready for a public town wizard. Better, you think, to do good deeds from the shadows and hope the right people notice. How will you try to serve the town in a discreet way? I know some thugs are terrorizing the town. I'll find and blow up the base. Divine the identity of the leader of the Twilight Band, the vigilantes who persecute shapeshifters. Use Vivomancy to create a new crop to replace those destroyed by the negative cloud. Requires 10 gold. With a glamour up, go door to door raising funds to restore the copper tree in the market square. The Twilight Band is a group of Accretan citizens who burn down the houses of suspected shapeshifters. They come out only at night, dressed in indigo robes and white masks that conceal the faces, so their identities are a mystery. They will probably pose a threat to Tal someday, unless you do something. Alone in your apartment, you place your fingers to your temples, close your eyes, and send your mind reaching for the identity of the leader of the Twilight Band. Mysterion Nomai, Apocalypto Indico Protestos. An image forms in your mind of banker Sarah, your landlord. You can't quite believe she's in charge of the group, as unpleasant as she may be. Gain divination. In your vision, banker Sarah meets with a well-heeled male client at the local bank. She seems distracted, and casts a suspicious glance your way. You dispel the vision, though you think she may already have realized it was you who was spying on her. Your situation may have become urgent. She has the right to search your apartment, and if she does find evidence of magic in violation of the lease, you could get into a lot of trouble before you can get her in trouble. What do you do with this new information? You decide that divination alone will not be sufficient to convict banker Sarah. You need some tangible proof. And that will require some sneaking. You go outside, find an unlocked window, and climb inside your landlord's place. Banker Sarah's house is full of antique wooden furniture, and the walls are decorated with signs from shops that closed years ago. A cross-stitch pillow on her rocking chair declares, "Trust in Abraxas, but be ready to be his miracle." You're startled by a knock on the front doors, followed by the doors bursting open. 4 chainmail-clad guards from the city rush in. Put your hands where we can see them. One barks at you. You've been discovered. And you have no physical evidence yet that Banker Sara is a Twilight Band leader. You can cast a spell if you make it fast. You quickly try to obtain the concentration necessary to cast a divination. Mysterion nomai revelabit indicia culpae, you murmur with your fingers to your temples. Get him, the lead guard says, but your vision appears in time. The closet, you say. There are indigo robes in there. Banker Sara is the leader of the Twilight Band. The other guards pin your arms behind you. It would be impossible to cast spells now, but the guard's leader does go to the closet and tow it open, revealing many of the Twilight Band's signature robes. Ha, the guard leader says. He gives you an inquiring look, as if he wants to ask you something. Then he shakes his head. We're going to let Mayor Koz figure out what to do with you. To his fellow guards, he says, Czek, grab the robes. You two, keep this skulker pinned, don't let him do whatever it was he just did. You are escorted to Mayor Koz's office, where the guards present the indigo robes to him. Do we finally have enough to go after her? The guard asks Koz. That will do nicely, the mayor says. Increased Koz relationship. Guardmal, please arrest Banker Sara. And what about this guy? The lead guard says, pointing to you. Creeping around mumbling weird stuff. I think we can all agree that helping the town occasionally requires the aid of unusual people, Mayor Koz says, giving the guard a significant look. Let him go. The guard does so, and you bow and take your leave. You hear later that Banker Sara screamed that you were a wizard as she was arrested, but that comes to nothing for the moment. That worked out fairly well. Asides as mayor. Later in the day, after you've already returned to reading one of your tomes of magic, you get a knock on your door. It's Mayor Koz. Koz's spectacles give him a scholarly air, but he has a ready, friendly smile. His belt is overburdened with various pouches and tools hanging from it, including a book pouch, a sheath for a pen, lockpicks, and a bag of dice. How do you know Koz besides as mayor? We once worked together replanting after a death cloud came through. We sometimes fly kites together on the commons. We were in a band together before he was mayor. We once worked together replanting after a death cloud came through. Last summer, Koz organized another cleanup after a death cloud. Everyone worked together in pairs, and Koz paired himself with you. As you replanted, Koz informed you of the pet peeves of every plant. This one wants shade some of the time, this one needs occasional sprinkling with charcoal, and so on. Gained vivomancy. And he asked about you and your dreams. You're still Ori Ellison, right? He said as he lifted a tree into a hole. What do you want to be? What's your heart's desire? I'm not sure what I want is really possible, you said uneasily. Hey, Cos said, looking you in the eyes. It's my job now to make sure your dreams are possible, alright? You just let me know what you need. You nodded, still afraid to say it. But somehow, from the way he spoke, you thought maybe he would help you someday, even if those dreams did include being a wizard. He signals that he'd like to speak with your door shut, so you close the storm doors. Listen, the people at the market say you and Tull went on some kind of adventure where you found a bunch of interesting old books, Cos says. I was wondering whether you might be willing to take on similar adventures for the town. You don't actually mean in an official capacity, do you? You say. You hesitate to say as a town wizard, even though Cos clearly thinks you are a magic user. Cos shakes his head. No, he says. But you know that there are some jobs of a sensitive nature where you have one public title and another real title, the Queen's spies, for example, besides Spy Master Doll. Obviously, they can't be spy so and so. Yes, you say, flushing as you realize where this is headed. I want you to be a Cretan's town wizard in secret, Cos says. I want you to work for me. I like what you've done, and I really want you to be on the town's payroll. Quietly. What do you say? You wonder whether your cover may be already blown with banker Sarah. But she's in jail now, so you suppose that's one way of keeping the secret safe. What kind of arrangement would you like to work out with Mayor Cos? Accept Cos's offer to become the secret town wizard. I'll take your offer of secret employment, you tell Cos. Excellent, Cos says. Now, what title would you like as your cover? Hunter. What about Hunter Ori? You ask. Yes, that's good. Cos says. Hunters are already seen as an eccentric lot, and not to be trifled with. For that matter, I might do a hunter's work anyway, you said, hoping to go on more missions with Tal. Certainly, Cos says, but I actually think your skills could be much more valuable in town. Still, I'm sure there will be a variety of jobs you could do for us, and some might including the slaying of monsters. With that, you agree to be a secret wizard for the town. You'll hold one title in public, but in truth, you'll be serving the town with your spells. You can hardly wait. The mayor hands you an advance in the form of a pouch of gold. Gain 200 gold. The first of many, I hope, Cos says. As you count the money in pleased disbelief, he takes his leave of you. You awaken in the night to the smell of smoke. It's pitch black in your bedroom, but when you move to your living room, you see Tommy running back and forth from the kitchen, tossing buckets of water on your storm doors. It's pitch black in your bedroom, but when you move to your living room, you see Tommy running back and forth from the kitchen, tossing buckets of water on your storm doors. It's pitch black in your bedroom, but when you move to your living room, you awaken in the night to the smell of smoke. It's pitch black in your bedroom, but when you move to your living room, you see Tommy running back and forth from the kitchen, tossing buckets of water on your storm doors. They hiss with steam when the water connects. A small candle lit by Tommy casts weak light on the proceedings. Tommy, what are you doing? You ask. Extinctor Ignis, Tommy answers, somewhat unhelpfully. Where did it come from? Extra, the golem says, pointing to your front doors. Well, yes, but never mind. Leo the Sphinx cozies up to you, and you pet it to reassure it. You cast a divination to see the cause of the fire. Mysterion nomai reverbitatio pirgagias. Your vision reveals a mob of townsfolk bearing torches outside the storm doors of your apartment, which are flaming like logs on a campfire. The townsfolk are dressed mostly in the rough clothing of day laborers and farmers, though a few well-dressed nobles stand among them. You recognize faces from around town but see nobody you know personally. A cry goes up, call and response between one member of the mob and the rest. Abraxas is the only god. Long live Abraxas. Abraxas is the only god. Long live Abraxas. They didn't ask you your thoughts on Abraxas, the one true god of the church, but you suspect they think your wizardry is incompatible with being a pious believer. They didn't ask you your thoughts on Abraxas, the one true god of the church, but in short, they probably want to kill you because of your use of magic. Perhaps you haven't been as careful as you thought. Cancelling the vision, you run buckets back and forth from your water basin in the kitchen, tossing the water to meet the red-hot doors with a sizzle. You'll have to make an automated fire engine at some point, you think. With enough water, the doors cool down, and you think the flames are probably dying a dead on the other side. You can hear a dull roar go up from the mob above. They probably think you're fighting the fire with magic. How would you like to handle the mob? You unbar the doors, then poke them open with a long stick. Stop! You cry. I come in peace. But you can't manage to gain any control over the crowd, which shouts you down with cries of "Witch!" And you can't glam us. They rush you before you can mount a defense. They pin your arms, then blindfold you, bind you, and gag you. Unable to cast magic because of your bound and gagged state, you're uncertain of where you're being taken. There are plenty of arguments around you about whether or not you should be killed. It's usually the more well-spoken person who argues for the church's instructions, which seem to include keeping you alive. You are dumped somewhere with a damp floor. You think it might be underground. It smells like excrement. You suspect you will enter this before long. With no clue as to the passage of time, you try to reach for the power sources of magic, the dark sun, the earth itself, your mind, your body, the sky. You can feel them there still, but without movement and words, you find yourself unable to channel the power into any form. It is the magical equivalent of feeling your foot nearly asleep. You sleep a few times, but get no food. You begin to get very hungry. Finally, you hear your first word in days, croaked by some big, coarse man in an ironic tone, visitors. You hear the sound of clanking armor and others shuffling into your cell. Remove the blindfold, please, a gentle voice says. Someone removes your blindfold, and you find yourself in a tomb with two inquisitors, two guards in plate armor bearing halberds, who will turn out to say little, and four even quieter occupants within the sarcophagi to either side of you. The two inquisitors wear the white tabards of their orders. The delicate-looking man wears the sign of the House of Sun on his tabard, and a gruffer-looking, bigger, red-bearded man bears the sign of the House of Flame. You have heard church interrogations are often performed with one inquisitor from each house, with the sun promising salvation and the flame threatening damnation. I apologize for your rude accommodations here, but they're only temporary, says one of the inquisitors, the same gentle voice that requested your blindfold be removed. Maybe, the gruffer, red-bearded man amends. If you cooperate. I'm Blessed Sam, and this is my associate, Blessed Jacob. Blessed Sam looks back at Blessed Jacob, who is leaning sullenly against a sarcophagus. Jacob scowls and adds, "We're authorized to take you back to the capital by any means necessary, so I suggest you remain cooperative. I'll answer our questions truthfully, and the church may find a place for you in society yet," Sam says evenly. Jacob just scowls and makes an impatient gesture to get on with it. Sam sighs. "We want to ask you a few questions, as long as you're here. If you cooperate, we may look past your other transgressions. Are you ready?" You nod, and Sam removes the gag. "Do you know of anyone else who uses magic?" Blessed Sam asks you. You think you hear genuine curiosity in his voice. You answer truthfully that you have not taught anyone else magic. "Looks like we caught the vermin before it bred," Jacob says to Blessed Sam. "There's no need to be rude, Jacob," Sam says disapprovingly. "And do you know of any shapeshifters in this town?" Blessed Jacob asks. Blessed Jacob scowls at you in suspicion, but he says nothing more. The inquisitors ask a few other questions about mages you've never heard of, and then they conclude the interview. "We'll be taking you to the capital tomorrow morning," Sam says. "For that, it will be up to the Hierophant to decide what to do with you." But it turns out that you'll see Sam sooner than that. In the night, you think it's night. In the night, you think it's night. There is a knock on your cell door, followed by a jangle of keys. Then the door creaks open. "May I come in?" Blessed Sam asks as he enters your cell. He's carrying a bronze bird cage that contains a baby dragon. "Make yourself at home," you say dryly. The Inquisitor sets the birdcage with the dragon down on the floor. The tiny beast sniffs at the dust. "This is my pet Thomas," Sam says. "The saint who cured the blind, then declared the Hierophant was the blindest of all," you say, intrigued by the choice of name. "Hung by that Hierophant, but the next Hierophant celebrated him as a martyr." "Yes," Sam says, surprised. Increase Sam relationship. "Anyway, Thomas, my dragon, that is, has long had an injured wing that prohibits him from hunting, so I have to feed him dead mice from the pet store in Edra." "Anyway, Thomas, my dragon, that is, has long had an injured wing that prohibits him from hunting, so I have to feed him dead mice from the pet store in Edra." Poor dragon. Poor mice. Do you expect me to feel sorry for your dragon while I'm stuck here? Could you perhaps get to the point? Do you expect me to feel sorry for your dragon while I'm stuck here? Blessed Sam winces. "No, I suppose I don't," he says. "Sorry." Increased calculation. Increase Sam relationship. "Anyway, I was hoping you could heal Thomas here. Something tells me that we haven't seen everything you can do, and I just have a feeling you're a good person." Noting your skeptical reaction, Sam says with open palms, "This isn't a trap. I'm not going to suddenly turn you in. Blessed Jacob is not going to spring out from behind the door. This is me coming to you after hours as a private citizen. I just want my pet to be happy, even if it means he'll fly away. He gives you a wistful smile. Do you heal Blessed Sam's dragon? Yes, but Sam has to untie me and help me escape. I'll help you, but you have to help me escape, you say to Sam. He says, a bit nervous at the idea. Well, I'm afraid I just don't trust you enough to do that, he says. Come to think of it, if you want to escape, you'll just do it anyway if I untie you. Oh, I really should have thought this through. This was such a bad idea. Never mind, and I'm sorry. He picks up his dragon birdcage and makes for the door. What? Wait. You cry, but it's too late. The door slams with a resounding boom. When the Inquisitors come to take you to the capital the next day, Blessed Sam refuses to make eye contact as he puts your blindfold and gag back in place. At least now you know what's making the chittering noises on the wagon ride next to you. It's not a mouse, it's Thomas the baby dragon. You remain blindfolded and gagged as you're loaded onto a wagon. You can hear Blessed Sam and Blessed Jacob traveling with you, the former protesting when the guards are rough with you, the latter giving gruff instructions that the witch can be stuffed anywhere convenient where you can still take a whack at him. From all the clanking and rustling, you're packed with at least 4 other guards in plate mail in the back of the wagon. Sam rides in the back with you as well, leaving Blessed Jacob to drive the wagon. You may not believe it, but I'm sorry you're being treated in this way, Sam says. The Hierophant claims a wizard must know penance and sorrow before he can open his heart to the church. I don't know about that, but it saddens me to see you in pain. Let me take your mind off it, and I will tell you stories from the Book of Abraxas on the ride to the capital. In this way, you endure a long wagon ride north. You hope Leo the Sphinx can scrounge around your place for something to eat. You didn't have time to leave out any food, but the thing did seem like it would eat anything if given a chance. You just hope nothing too weird happens if it gets into your alchemy set. You find yourself in a mildewy cell carved from rock that's cold to the touch. You're still blindfolded, gagged, and bound at the wrists, but you can stand. Magic remains out of the question. You pace the circumference of your cell. There is a small wooden bench and a heavily dented brass chamber pot cold to the touch. The door to your cell feels like wood, rough with old scratching and slightly damp. You feel at the bench and chamber pot, hoping to find some sharp edge on which to cut your bonds. But you find nothing of the sort. Since your legs are free, you give the door to the cell a short, sharp kick. It's quite solid. You kick just hard enough to make your leg ache after, but you haven't accomplished anything. You curl up into a ball, hoping sleep will bring a solution. Ori. Tull's urgent whisper wakes you up. You're still on a cold stone floor, but now you scramble to your feet and go to the tiny barred window in your cell door. It is indeed Tull outside your cell. I've got a key, she says. Hang on. There's a jangle at the lock. A key, you say. You're not just here, you also have a key. The Inquisitors weren't that hard to follow from a cretin, Tull says. As for the key, I just, kind of sweet-talked them out of it. She used your shape-shifting, you think. But Tull doesn't know you know her secret. The door swings open and Tal hugs you with fervor. And her kiss is all the sweeter after having resigned yourself to never touching her lips again. Let's get you out of here, Tal says, cutting your bonds. I also managed to find out from the guards where your confiscated stuff is. It should be just down this corridor, past the other mage cells. We can free any other mages we find along the way. Sounds great, you say. Let's go. Yuan Hunter Tal continued down the dungeon corridor. Scratched into the stone of the corridor's floor is the word purgatory. To your disappointment, most of the cells are empty. Perhaps the occupants have proceeded on to whatever comes after purgatory. Regardless, you find one mage still sleeping in her cell, on a shabby straw pallet. You recognize the black velvet robes of a student at the University of Edra, which imitate the wizard robes of the magic academies of old despite the university's mundane teachings. Despite incarceration, this student has the clean sheen of someone who has rarely known hardship. Her long, curly black hair achieves a luster that is probably impossible without an assortment of beauty products. She wears a small amount of makeup, mascara, blush that has begun to smudge without access to a mirror. She is short and has a curvy figure barely hinted at by the contours of her voluminous black academic robes. Her black thigh-high boots look somewhat expensive. In sleep, the student's face is scrunched in a look of annoyance, as if her dream involves someone she has no patience for. You have a strong sense that this student does not belong here. You cast a quick automation spell to open the lock, and it opens easily. The young woman opens her eyes. "Did my parents send you?" she says eagerly. "Am I getting out of here?" She looks not much younger than you, but sounds still younger than that. Sitting up, the young student reveals that her wrists are bound, presumably to prevent the casting of spells. Her legs aren't bound, though. What do you want to say to the student? Your parents didn't send me. I'm a mage, like you. Oh. The student looks excited. Are there more of us somewhere? Some kind of secret society? I'm afraid we're it, to my knowledge, you say. The student looks slightly crestfallen. Ah well, then I suppose it's really too bad you didn't come in time to rescue the others. But I'd love to have a mentor, if you're willing. What about these parents of yours? Tal asks. They'll come around to the idea, the student asserts. Any chance you're going to rescue me anyway? She optimistically holds up her bound wrists. What else would you like to say to the student? I've asked enough questions. I free the student from her bonds. You cut the student free of her bonds. Oh, thank you, says the student. Increased Vera relationship. She gives you an enthusiastic hug. Encourage the student to come with us as we explore the basement. Would you like to join us as we explore this place? You ask the student. That sounds amazing. The student says. I'm Vera, by the way. Wizard V, I mean, okay, I guess I'm Vera Caroline's daughter. Hunter Ori. The young mage glances down the corridor outside the cell. I think there's some kind of impressive library down here somewhere. I'd love to see if they have any magical books. Increased Vera relationship. Sounds familiar, Tal says, regarding you with her eye grin. You continue down the block of cells, in the direction that Vera recalls the mages were taken on Judgment Day. Along the way, you come to a locked metal door on the left-hand side. You cast a spell of automation to unlock the door, and electricity courses through it until you hear the snick of the lock turning. Gained automation. Vera looks at you with awe as the last of the electricity courses through the door. You think perhaps she has never seen another mage cast a spell before. Increased Vera relationship. You can't help but wonder whether such adoration could be useful to you. Vera dashes inside. My stuff. Choice of Magics. By Kevin Gold. Show stats, restart achievements menu. Inside the room, you find a trove of items taken from prisoners, including all your gear and a tome of divination magic that Vera claims. You fire up your Lux Gladius experimentally and find that its magical blade of light and satisfying VWUM sound are both intact. Vera looks surprised and vaguely alarmed, so you retract the blade and try to look nonchalant. Vera hugs her old book of divination to her chest lovingly. You feel the same way as you slip on your magical ring and tie your belt pouch containing sundry magical components around your waist. Vera continues to search through the room, then says worriedly, "Anybody see a staff tipped with a blue gem?" You don't see anything like that. Nobody does. That could be bad, if they've taken it for themselves, Vera says. What does it do? You ask. Negation magic stuff, Vera says. I've never cast any negation magic without it, so I probably shouldn't try now. We'll look for it as we explore, you promise Vera. She picks up a plain quarterstaff to use as a weapon instead. How did you come across such a thing, anyway? You ask. Vera shrugs. Bought it. I wanted to try negation magic, so I bought some good equipment. You see Tal shoot Vera an extremely annoyed glance. A novice buying ridiculously expensive equipment to start a hobby does seem like the sort of thing that would vex Tal. There aren't many other items in the room, and you suspect this is just a temporary holding place for the goods of the incarcerated. All the other leftovers must be the usual detritus that accumulates in any lost and found. You gather the items that look the most valuable. Gained 324 gold. Hunter Ori, would you be willing to teach me magic? Vera says as you're about to leave the room. You're the only mage I know, and this is what I want to do with my life. I don't want to study dry academic stuff at the university. I want to make magic. She touches the door handle, saying with wonder, you just unlocked that door like it was nothing. I wouldn't even know where to start. And you must be so clever, or you wouldn't have even gotten down here. And kind, because you rescued me. So, please. She doesn't waste any time, Tal says wryly. I'm not interested in taking on an apprentice right now. Sure. Tell your parents I cost 1,000 gold a year. Of course. I have no right to hoard my knowledge when I obtained it freely myself. Increased calculation. Okay. Vera says, excited. Apparently this is no problem at all. Of course she can afford it, Tal mutters with a roll of her eyes. Of course her parents are obviously supportive. You leave the storage room and continue down the corridor. Vera looks newly chipper, imagining her future as your apprentice. Stone gargoyles stand watch over the heavy pair of iron doors at the end of the corridor. Two unlit braziers stand to either side of the doors. Someone has used negation magic to burn the word run into the stone floor at the threshold, but someone else used negation magic to cross this out and write repent instead. So all the mages went in here. Tal says. She tries pulling a handle. Seems unlocked. I could cast a divination and look for a secret passage. Vera says. Surely if there's a path to hell, there's a path to heaven. Let's go in. I'm not afraid of whatever's in there. Let Vera cast a divination to look for another path. I'll cast a divination to look for another path. Let's just sneak around and look for secret passages. Let's go in. I'm not afraid of whatever's in there. Whatever is in there, we can handle it, you say. Increased optimism. Let's go. You push open the door and enter. The next room fills you with a palpable sense of dread. Something is very wrong here. You decide that it's not the black flames and demons inhabiting the tableau that encircles the room, a worn-out cliché that doesn't hold much power over you. Your attention is instead drawn to the stone floor, stained crimson from many, many executions. You can almost sense the anguish and sorrow of the dead filling the room. A smell of cooked flesh pervades the space as well, making you slightly nauseous. On the far side of the room stands a blood-spattered, 9-foot-tall steel sculpture of a demon. The sculpture is slightly crouched, as if it may spring at any moment. Its curled horns and sharp bite both look dangerous, and its claws are each gripping something, though you're not sure what. There appear to be no other exits, except a false one painted on the wall behind the steel demon. There are the painted flames part, revealing a stairway out and into the light. But that's just part of the painting. This place is not right, Tal says uneasily. Suddenly, the metal doors slam shut behind all of you, and you hear the snick of a lock being turned. Light springs from both of the metal demons' clenched fists in two sizzling, glowing red blades. It seems you and Tal aren't the only ones with a Lux Gladius in the room. For a moment, the only sound is the quiet crackle of these blades. Wizards, repent, the demon golem says in a sepulchral voice. Repent now, or hell will be your final resting place. It crouches and tenses, about to spring. Vera looks stricken with terror and probably can't be relied on for magic. Use automation magic and what I learned from the Golem manual in the Magic Academy to take control of this golem. You quickly think about what you learned from the Golem manual you picked up in the Academy. To take control of the golem probably requires the password, which was traditionally Mentis Rata for menial golems that any wizard could reset. However, you suspect a wizard murdering golem that has survived thousands of years would not be using a password one step up from password. However, you suspect a wizard murdering golem that has survived thousands of years would not be using a password one step up from password. Surely some wizard would have escaped death that way if it were so simple. But the golem must have some password to reset it. So why not try all of them? As the golem coils and prepares to spring, you amend your plan. Why not try all of them simultaneously? You raise one hand to the sky and point the other toward the stones of this infernal room. Blending vivomancy, negation, divination, glamour and automation, you beseech the dead wizards whose spirits still linger to cause the very stones of the room to shout, simultaneously, every password the shades ever knew. Spiritibus a saxa cantibus arcana. Lightning strikes your hand and crackles through you and into the stones of the room. But instead of shouting a million passwords, the stones only half-heartedly mutter 1 2 3 4 5 and password, and then fall silent. Much of the energy you tried to summon for the spell appears to be sucked into the golem's breastplate, where it crackles and dissipates. But you think you learned something in trying to craft the spell. Gained automation. It absorbs even that magic. Vera says, horrified. No wonder the other wizards died here. Tal draws her Lux Gladius, its light flaring up with her BSSSHHHT. I wonder if it's immune to this. The golem leaps at Vera, an astonishing leap that carries it all the way across the room, and as it descends, it slashes with both swords of light. Tal, close to Vera, hesitates to intercept. Vera jumps backward, and only the tips of the golem's weapons sear the student's robes in a giant X slashed across her front. She screams in pain. Apparently, those weapons burned flesh. Are you all right? You ask. No. Vera shouts, stumbling backward. What are we even doing here? We need to run. Decreased Vera relationship. You put your fingers to your temples and murmur, Mysterion nomai, subibunt revelare. You get just a flash of insight. You have a Lux Gladius, so you can, and then the spell abruptly ends. You can see the golem's breastplate sizzle slightly. It seems to have absorbed the spell. Now within striking range of Vera, the golem unleashes a flurry of slashes with its swords of light. To your horror, Vera's right arm, then the left, is systematically dismembered, and she has hardly time to scream before the sound is cut short by her decapitation. The headless body spurts blood as it crumples to the ground. With Vera's death, you feel a wave of guilt. You thought of Vera as your equal, but she was clearly reckless and needed better guidance from you to survive. She was depending on you to help her out of the cathedral. And you let her down. Increase solemnity. Oh good God, Tal says, horrified. I say we fight, you say. So, Tal, you try to get around and flank it. Go. You draw your Lux Gladius, willing the blue blade to spring forth with a BSSSHHT. The sound is reassuring somehow. As you move into your positions, the golem coils to pounce. Then, it leaps at you. The golem's blades rain down on you, but you parry every blow with your Lux Gladius. Never have your fighting skills been given such a test before, but you hold your own. Gain fighting. Tal tries to draw its attention by flanking it from behind, but while it seems a bit distracted, it still focuses on you. Finally, Tal moves in and thrusts her Lux Gladius into the golem from behind, skewering it with her glowing blade. The breastplate dulls, losing the slight glow it once had, and the light goes out from the golem's eyes. Nice, Tal, you say, impressed. Well, thanks again for this thing, Tal says. Increased Tal relationship. You examine the still glowing Lux Gladiuses in the golem's hands. You take both, thinking that, even if you already have a Lux Gladius, you might sell both of them when you get out of here. The other Lux Gladiuses are practically money in the bank. Gained 600 gold. Finally, you examine the golem's now dull breastplate. It has had some powerful automation and negation runes on it that would absorb all magic. Though the ritual that powered these runes originally is now lost to time, the runes are quite interesting in their own right. Gained automation. Gain negation. Seeing nothing else to scavenge, you soon find that kneeling opens the secret door to the next room. As you're about to leave, it occurs to you that this room could use a serious repainting. You don't think you could do it without a ladder, but a monkey could. But then you recall that this is Vera's final resting place, and you decide it would be inappropriate. Enter the door with a frieze depicting the Eye of Abraxas. Beyond the door marked with an eye is a room full of crystals, and at its center a man-like creature dressed in the white robe of a saint who has several extra eyes on stalks growing from his head. There are no other exits to the room. While a couple of the many-eyed man's eyes are still looking at some crystals, the majority of these eyes are focused on you and your companion. It appears your arrival did not surprise this being. Black flames of negative energy surge up his body, and he raises a finger to point at you. Nihilo. A creature shouts in his deep baritone, and a dark bolt races from his finger to blast the ground in front of you. This warning shot blows a crater as wide as the doorway in the stone floor. The resulting purple and black negative energy cloud between you means that you can only vaguely see his nest of eyes through the fallout. I am the Watcher, and you should not be here, the being booms. Go wait in the next room for the Hierophant. He then murmurs something under his breath. Most blessed, you can't quite hear the rest, but you think he said something to the Hierophant. You think you see tendrils of glowing negative energy curl around the man, shining through the cloud. It seems dangerous to proceed further here. You draw negative energy from the dark sun even as the many-eyed man does the same. The room briefly smells like a mixture of sulfur and roasted meat. One way or another, this duel is going to be a learning experience. Gain negation. Nihilo. You shout, and a bolt races from your pointing finger toward your opponent. Antitha. He says, and the shield of negative energy appears before him. Your bolt rebounds off the shield, straight back at you. No. Tal shouts, and she shoves you out of the way of the bolt. The bolt hits her instead, and explodes. Tal. You shout in vain. In the space of an instant, Tal has been consumed by the very negative energy she always loathed, leaving only a black and purple cloud of negative energy residue. Increase solemnity. It seems so entirely stupid that she should die in this way, without warning, without saying goodbye. But you suppose that's how death works. You feel like sinking to your knees in despair, but you can't now, not with the many-eyed creature readying another spell. You let out an anguished cry and rush the Watcher with your Lux Gladius out. You skewer the surprisingly fragile being, who dies. You once read that the eyes of a Watcher can be used in a potion that permanently increases your awareness of your surroundings, useful for fighting and sneaking around. Now that you know what a Watcher is, it makes a certain amount of sense. You have your alchemy set with you, so it shouldn't take too long to make. You harvest a few eyeballs, thankful there's nobody else around to observe your actions. Gain fighting. Gain subtlety. Without the looming threat of the Watcher, you can now focus your attention on the rows of baby blue crystals covering the ceiling, walls, and waist-level elevated surfaces of the room. Each fist-sized crystal is cut like a gemstone, and in the largest facet, you can see another place displayed in the crystal as a flickering illusion. Most of these display the interiors of churches. Performing a quick mental calculation, you think it may be every church in the kingdom, and perhaps a few beyond, judging from some exotic decor that you don't recognize. You're also startled to see that one crystal appears to display the throne room of the royal palace. The young woman on the throne wears an elaborate sparkling white dress and is currently holding court, but you can't tell what anyone is saying. Still, you're certain that must be Queen Thekla. Her official church counselor, Blessed Advisor Armand, dressed all in white, appears to be scolding her. She in turn appears to be getting increasingly cross herself. The crystals near that one show various offices that look vaguely bureaucratic. You think there may be other rooms in the palace. You quickly search the body of the Watcher, but he was carrying nothing of interest. There doesn't seem to be much in here besides the crystals themselves, which are fairly interesting. When you've finished searching, you notice out of the corner of your eye something happening in the crystal depicting the adjacent room. To your surprise, there are now people filing into that heaven-like room, including Sam's usual partner Blessed Jacob, a man in white saint's robes, and a few armored church guards. They're hesitating before the door to your current room, debating the plan of attack. First things first, lob a negation spell into the next room, using the crystals to aim. You draw negative energy, all the while using the crystal showing the next room to triangulate. Then you open the door a crack, point without looking, and shout, Nihilo Magna. The resulting giant blast could leave no survivors. You're not even sure who you killed exactly, but if Jacob was among the dead, you're pretty sure that's a win. Increased calculation. Of course, when word gets out, it will be fairly obvious this was your doing. Increased vilification. You gather up the crystals which don't depict any other search parties nearby. Gain divination. Having gathered the crystals, you proceed to hold your breath and run through the heavenly room, into the room of books. Through the doorway is a huge library, easily the equal of the one you found back in the sunken Magic Academy. The room smells extremely musty, and while there are a few tomes that look relatively new, most look as though they might crumble at the touch. The orderly rows are labeled in the tongue of the ancients. You can make out sections marked theology, heresy, history, and miracles, and there are probably more you don't immediately see. Down the central aisle of this library is another door with a stone frieze above it. This one's stone artwork depicts a closed treasure chest. The light in the room is a pleasant, steady glow. You look up and see that the room is lit by the same kind of magical orbs within suspended bowls that lit the sunken academy. But these are well tended to, with no trace of dead insects or even dust. This room is still in use, you are certain. As you're considering which aisle of books to explore first, a stone door slams down behind you, blocking the entrance and sealing you inside. Your fingers scrabble at the door as you tug, but it is solidly shut. Then there is a hissing noise as some kind of blue gas begins to fill the library. What will you do about this gas seeping into the room? Deactivate the trap with automation magic. You raise your left hand and point your right toward one of the sources of the hissing noise. Then you hesitate. There seem to be several sources for the noise, and you should probably try to triangulate to find the central mechanism controlling all of them. You run around the library a bit. Procella's captionem detrateriama. You shout with one hand raised and the other pointing straight down at where you think the mechanism is. Lightning strikes your hand, you feel all the hair in your body stiffen as it courses down into the floor, and the hissing noises from all over the room suddenly stop. You did it. It's not hugely surprising for an expert at automation such as yourself, but it's still gratifying. Lastly, you cast a spell to open the door behind you, just in case you need to make a quick escape. You catch a brief vision of the Hierophant in her office. The old woman in white must have cast a divination on you. Before the brief vision ends, you see her rise from her chair. What will you do in this room full of books? You're only half surprised to find the books on magic under the category of miracles. You suspected from everything else you've seen that the saints are actually using magic to create glamours and perform miracles, and this confirms your suspicion. The ancient texts here are as old as those in the Magic Academy, suggesting that while the Church uses the knowledge of old, it does not particularly innovate. What kind of magic would you like to find the book about? You find the biggest book on negation that you can and begin to flip through it. Yes, this will do nicely. There are some quite advanced spells in here. You think you will learn quite a bit from this book. Gain negation. You look up, unsure how long you've been flipping through your book. You hesitate, unwilling to leave these treasures of knowledge behind. You'd prefer to keep discovering new things. But then the Hierophant enters the room. The Hierophant is a hunched old woman wearing a white robe, a tall white mitre embroidered with the eye of Abraxas, and a white stole embroidered on one side with a flame and the other with a sun. She regards you dispassionately and warily. To the Hierophant's right is Satan, the Sat who used to serve a Cretan, whom you encountered when returning from the ancient Magic Academy. She looks somewhat more sickly than she did when you saw her last, and even her general aura of holiness now can't hide her face's resemblance to a skull. The man to the Hierophant's left is younger and more portly, and has a full head of curly black hair that culminates in a big beard. You are moved. You are moved to want to help these three holy people, and you wonder why you have strayed from the church. All three individuals are clearly giving their all for the betterment for humanity. They all seem slightly drained, as you would expect of people with exhausting professions. They are glamoured, you realize foggedly. You struggle to maintain a clear head. Saint Ansar Twimsby, and I had high hopes for you, the Hierophant says. But then you killed the Watcher. She narrows her eyes in anger. And to think I would have offered you sainthood. But I think I must keep a tight leash on you. Somnia velum dormituras. Whatever the Hierophant is casting, it can't be good for you. I charge at her. You subtly edge closer to the Hierophant, then draw your Lux Gladius and attack. You catch her off guard, and with a flash of light, you run the Hierophant through. As the murderer of the Hierophant, you suspect you will not be well liked by the general public from now on. Increased vilification. Saint Anne and St. Wimsby exchange worried looks, then run out of the room. As you pass the bookshelves of the underground library on your way out, it occurs to you that you could make a brief stop to grab something. You think you have time, although casting a divination on the cathedral guards to check would only alert them to your exact location. Which school of magic? You grab the biggest book on glamour magic that you can find, then keep running. Gained glamour. How will you try to get out from the basement? You're all alone, so sneaking seems like a viable option. You suppose you could blast the ceiling with a ball of negation, then fly through, but that would probably involve breathing in some negative energy. You could grow giant mole hands and tunnel with vivomancy, but you don't think you could directly tunnel through the ceiling while flying. You'd just push off the surface ineffectually, so you'd have to build a tunnel that angled up. Or you could just use glamour magic and brazenly stride through the cathedral as if you belonged there. Sneak back the way I came. You decide to sneak back the way you came. Quickly. You make your way through the heavenly room, then back through the hellish room where you encountered the murder golem. You pass by the mage's cells, then ascend the stairs you used to come in. As you reach a landing in the stairwell, you hear voices up above. You press against the wall of the landing. The voices pass, and you continue up the stairs without incident. The stairway leads to the same kitchen you entered through. Unfortunately, just as you arrive, some cathedral guards begin filing in from the door to the outside, blocking your exit. The plate-armored guards bear swords and halberds, but thankfully there is no saint among them. Philautia omnis, Cleos venenum. You try boldly striding past the cathedral guards, hoping your glamour will do the work for you. Thankfully, it does. Which saint is that? A guard murmurs. Must be a new one, another responds. Outside, it is night. You make your way through the alley next to the cathedral and out to the street. As you do, you feel your glamour dissipate. The familiar nausea of rot grips you. You look forward to returning to a Cretan. At first, you think you managed to lose the forces of the church back in the cathedral. You hurriedly rent horses and ride out of the capital without incident. But a few hours down the road, you can see a formation of 12 torches following you in the darkness, perhaps a third of a mile away. You have little doubt these are inquisitors and church guards. You can't run away forever. Perhaps it's time to stop running and think of a way to keep the church at bay permanently.